I first saw Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey on a small black and white TV tucked into a corner of my parents' living room. It was January the 1st, 1982, and I was 16 years old. I wasn't a great moviegoer as a teenager. In fact, at that point, I could probably count the number of times I'd been to the cinema on one hand. But I was an avid science fiction reader, and having read Arthur C. Clarke's short story The Sentinel, I was desperate to see the movie Kubrick and Clarke had crafted from it, so much so that every ounce of my teenage brattishness was on full display. My parents had friends around for dinner that evening, and as usual the drill was that I was either polite or invisible. But there was a problem. The only TV in the house was in the living room, which was precisely where at 7:30 that evening everyone else would be. I must have been especially awkward that day because my parents agreed to let me put on my headphones and watch the TV while they entertained. And so I snuggled into a corner of the sofa, pulled the black and white portable up, and became selfishly absorbed in Kubrick's world of the future. Goodness knows what our guests were thinking. 2001 A Space Odyssey is a movie that's rich with metaphors that explore our relationship with technology. So much so that if I could reach back and talk to my 16-year-old self, I'd say, take note, this is important. I'd also say, don't be such a jerk for good measure. However, despite being awed by the opening sequence with its primitive apes and inscrutable black monolith, enthralled by the realistic space scenes, and shocked by the computer HAL's instinct for self-preservation, it would be another 30 years before I began to realize how powerful the medium of film is, especially when thinking about the future of science and technology in a complex human society. Back in 1982, I was entranced by 2001 A Space Odyssey because it exposed me to new ideas and new ways of imagining the future. Like many fans, I suspect, I ended up with quotes from the movie branded into my brain like, open the pod bay doors, Hal, along with Hal's response, I'm sorry, Dave, I'm afraid I can't do that. Without my realizing it, Kubrick's movie made me think about a future where smart computers might decide that their self-preservation was more important than the humans who created them. Fast forward to the present, and as we grapple with living in an increasingly complex world, I'm more convinced than ever that for all their flaws, science fiction movies are a powerful way of exploring the technological futures we face and how to navigate them. Of course, it can be irritating when scriptwriters and directors play fast and loose with scientific and engineering reality for the sake of telling a good story. But getting too wrapped up in the minutiae of how accurate a science fiction movie is misses the point. These are stories about our relationship with the future, and like all good storytelling, they sometimes play around with reality to reveal deeper truths. And as it turns out, this creative freedom can be surprisingly powerful when it comes to thinking about the social benefits and consequences of new technologies, and how we can steer technology innovation toward more beneficial and equitable outcomes. It's this human dimension of science fiction movies that I'm particularly interested in. What these movies do rather well is provide us with a glimpse around the corner of our collective near future to help us see what might be coming down the pike and start thinking about how we might respond to it. And they manage to do this because their scriptwriters and directors aren't encumbered by the need to stick to today's reality. Viewed in the right way, and with a good dose of critical thinking, science fiction movies can help us think about and prepare for the social consequences of technologies we don't yet have, but are coming faster than we can imagine. This is precisely what this book sets out to do. Using the 12 movies it's built around, the book provides glimpses into the technological capabilities we're building now and how we might start to think about their beneficial and responsible development and use. Naturally, it only scratches the surface of the vast array of technologies that are beginning to emerge and the opportunities and challenges they present. But through the lens of these movies, the book sets out on a journey to explore what can go wrong with new technologies and how we can all help nudge them towards a future that looks better than the present we're currently in. And it continues that personal journey I started in 1982 with that first barely conscious glimpse into how science fiction movies can reveal hidden connections between who we are, the society we live in, and the technologies we create.